Hello, I'm Michael Verney and welcome along to the Indo GAA Podcast with thanks to AIB. AIB is at the heart of Gaelic games across both club and county, and in 2025 they're celebrating a decade of sponsoring the All-Ireland Senior Football Championships. With this year's championship shaping up to be one of the most competitive in years, AIB is more excited than ever to bring fans closer to the action. Check out the hashtag #TheToughest for more. Hello and welcome to Indo GAA for the football show today. Delighted to be joined once again by Dick Clerkin and Pat Spillane. And just before we went on air, we were taking a little trip down memory lane, so we might as well put it on air. Dick has a couple of nice little jerseys. We were just talking about the Hell for Leather programme that was broadcast on RTE on Monday night. And Dick, you have something that, well, you cherish it, but by all accounts, Pat doesn't. It's an old school Kerry number 8 jersey.
Well, this would be, quite long story short, during the week, one of my young lads, somebody had a jersey, a retro jersey up on eBay. You know what young lads are at now? Have you any old jerseys, Dad? And I sort of had to pull them down from the attic because my sister needed the jersey for Glastonbury. But as I was sort of rummaging through sort of different ones, I came across this one. It was my dad's had got this from a Jacko. Now, some of your listeners can see this on the YouTube. This would be probably worth money if you put it up, and don't worry, it'll not be going up on eBay. So this is Jacko Shea's number 8 from the 1979 All-Ireland semi-final when Kerry gave Monaghan a good lesson. But again, that was me and my brother would have spent our sort of younger days out the back. You know, there was a lot of stories like that last night on the Hell for Leather show about where you started playing football. I would have been Jack O'Shea. My brother was dressed up in a Monaghan jersey. Pat, we didn't get any of yours, unfortunately, so it was Jacko for me when it was going up out the back jersey. And then there was another one, the Monaghan one it was actually an Adidas jersey Monaghan had back in the day. So these were a bit of nostalgia.
Just on that one, Dick, it's an amazing how the material changes. Like that looks so thick, yeah.
Heavy, unbelievable, yeah. And a lot smaller. I don't know, you're obviously tugged out bigger than you wear, Pat, because you just fit into these wee jerseys.
It's in the long sleeve jersey, lads. I love the long sleeve jersey. It's obviously a thing long of the past now. You wouldn't even see them in winter time now, but they are. I think they're class. You know, one of my favorite jerseys I have is obviously St. Kieran's College in Kilkenny is like the hurling nursery, and it's old black and white hoop, long sleeve jersey, and the back of it has like a big white square and the number goes within the square. I think it's a number 3, but it's beautiful. I love having kind of stuff like that. Pat,
the other one I didn't bring with me, Pat, God rest him, Dad got from 85 semi-final when Monaghan pushed Kerry to the wire, was Paddy's, God rest him, number 5. Remember the very silky jersey? It's a lovely wee kit now, actually, so that was there as well. So anyway, yeah.
Pat, did you ever hold on to any jerseys or what? Have you much of a...
It's interesting because my son, who's Pat, is into jerseys and he buys jerseys non-stop and he loves like the retro jerseys are in at the moment. And there's a number 12 jersey, left half forward jersey that's hanging in Spillane's bar, and I don't have a Kerry jersey. What we did an awful lot of the time was you tended to swap.
Yeah.
And at the time you said, "This is great, I'm getting a Derry at the time." I remember swapping with a Derry. They had a beautiful white jersey with a red line down it. And I swapped with all those. And you know what? At the time I thought, this is brilliant. I'm swapping all my Kerry jersey. It's something I deeply regret because they mean nothing, another county's jersey. Whereas if I had those county jerseys, but it's amazing the way it has changed over the years. And you know, in jerseys like it was O'Neill's, and it's still probably O'Neill's still made. Dwyer was big into trying to maximise on our money to generate money for holidays. And we did Adidas, which at the time Dwyer did a deal with Adidas, which was, and I remember being in the dressing room, it was hilarious that we'd be wearing Adidas jerseys and Adidas togs, and there'd be a county board official with sticking plaster covering the Adidas emblem before we went out.
That's what we have here. Monaghan done the same at that time. Yeah. So that's what my daddy had said. So that's because there's an Adidas tag on it, but they actually had to put something over the actual Adidas logo in the jersey. It's mad, wasn't it?
Yeah, and while the J jerseys, they're very nice. The J jerseys. I mean, I was in Tubbercurry last Sunday, and Sligo were playing Carlow, and Carlow is the most beautiful of all jerseys. It is the Jamaican look. It is absolutely fantastic.
I know. Come on, Pat.
But all I would say is Carlow jersey is the nicest jersey in the country.
Outside of Offaly, I agree with you.
Yeah, I think. But one thing I would say, we haven't like, we still haven't moved on in terms of jerseys. Like, the one little thing, the name of the player should be on the back of every intercounty jersey, Clifford or O'Shea or whatever like that. We haven't that yet. We haven't got. Like, we should have the name and we should probably be maximising the money out of jerseys, and we should probably have even more sponsors on the jerseys. We're starting to go there, but the name. Could you imagine, like, just in terms of profile?
But the number, you need the number, because you need the sort of the
go to squad numbers, Go to squad numbers.
That becomes synonymous with, and then absolutely, I would fully agree with Pat. They're missing a trick there, We
have some emails in from various viewers and things, and we're going to read them out at some stage.
People are listening.
Oh, they are. No, they are listening. But I'm going to put it out to any of our listeners or any of our viewers. If you have a Pat Spillane Kerry jersey from back in the day, original, get in touch and we'll sort something out. Or Pat could spend a day with you or something like that in return or something. We'll sort something out, okay? But just if anyone has one of them or you know where one is, get in touch with the show, okay? The other thing I was going to say to you, Pat, when you were on about Micko there and maximising kind of revenue, was there ever any reservations amongst you? Like, remember the Bendix washing machine appeared today at the All Ireland? Like, was there ever any reservations from you, or did you get much slagging over it? Or
the money was good and we didn't give a tuppenny. I swear to God. I mean, like, Dwyer, I think I've said it before, but Dwyer realised at an early stage that winning All Ireland medals wasn't going to motivate us. I mean, winning an All Ireland medal is amazing. Winning 2 is brilliant. When you're going into 3 and 4, and I don't mean to be flippant on this, but like, it's accumulation. And Dwyer needed a carrot to motivate us. He said, we needed more than just be motivated for another All-Ireland medal. And that's when Micko introduced the holidays. And we've said it before, we started with the most exotic. In 1978, we started with the most exotic location in the world, Gran Canaria. And by the time we went to 1981, as you know, we went on a world tour. We went on 3 weeks to Australia, 1 week to Hawaii, 4 nights in San Francisco, 3 nights in New York, 5 weeks.
The Lions wouldn't be at it. Well,
5 weeks, all paid for, and £1,400 a man. Pounds a man, pocket money.
What was it, Pat? What would that be in today's money now? My God.
You can buy your house back then.
That's 5,000. But, like, Dwyer, what used really annoyed Dwyer was companies making money off our backs. And he felt that if there was any money that the team would generate, that it should go to the team, the players, the subs and the officials. And he was brilliant in that. Every deal that Dwyer struck was a team deal for a holiday. And like I said, we struck the Bendix deal, which was brilliant. I mean, if anyone sees it, it's me standing, there was a gang of us, but I know I was standing alongside a washing machine with a towel around me. I think we got 30,000 or something like that. It was huge, huge money. I remember another thing that used pissed Dwyer off was that the team photographs. If you won an All Ireland, Smithwick's or the drinks companies or whatever like that, the following week there'd be a big photograph of the Kerry All Ireland champions with whatever company logo. And Dwyer had 2 stunts to avoid that. Number one, brilliant move. For one of the All Ireland finals, he said, these bastards, I'm not going to give them an opportunity to make money out of our team photograph. We deliberately set up a team photograph the day of the All Ireland final with 14 players in the photograph. There was 1 missing, which meant that the company could not use it because there was only 14. That was number one. That was a brilliant move by Dwyer. And the second one was even better. I can't remember what final. I think it could have been the 4 in a row. And because we were so expectant of winning, we so convinced we were going to win. Dwyer wanted us to maximise our money when we'd win. And he wanted team photographs to be on the streets of Killarney on the Monday night for sale and thereon. So what did we do? The morning of the All-Ireland final in, say, 1981, in the Grand Hotel in Malahide, we did the team photograph with the players, the subs and the officials, so that frame team photograph was ready for sale on Monday. Oh, geez, like when you think about it was. And like I said, I mean, so all the money that was being generated for us. And I mean, there was 3 ways he generated all the money for the World Tour. Number one, we went to the north for 2 weekends in a row. where we played 3 challenge games on one weekend and 3 challenge games. So we played, say, Spillane on a Friday, we played Ballybuffet on a Saturday, we played Drogheda on a Sunday, and another week we played Burden on a Friday, Glenravel and Antrim on a Sunday, and Carrickmore and Tyrone. And Dwyer, and the money was for us. But Dwyer was so fucking cute. He wouldn't trust those fucking Ulster boys on the gate. So he brought up a carload of lads from out Kerry. Peter Keane's father, Lord the Mercy and Soul, Tom Keith, 5 of them. And they wouldn't leave their mother in for free, you know. So we made money. But the third way was we sold. And when you're on holidays in Kerry and you go to hotels and bars in Kerry, there's a lovely pencil portrait of the Kerry team. And still hanging in lots of bars and restaurants.
I've seen that there, yeah.
And at the time, 1981, we sold that for £100 now. £100. You buy the Mona Lisa for a few bob more. And £100. Now, the girl who did it, she ran out of time to do and so we had to send in our passport photographs for her to complete it. And the problem with the passport photographs is that you're not too sure whether the person is 6'10" or 4'11". And the poor girl who did the painting or who did the portraits, the biggest players in the team are actually the smallest in the portrait, and the smallest are the biggest. Actually, the biggest fella in the portrait is Oakie Morton. But we made, I can't remember, was it 34,000 or something from those portraits? So, but like, it was all about money generating. It was all about being put back into team fund to enjoy our holidays.
Alan, why didn't you talk about that last night in RTE, Pat, instead of all that guff you were at? That's what you should go back and do. That we'd watch that.
Well, I tell you something, Alan Sugar or Donald Trump or any of these on the Dragon's Den or The Apprentice have nothing on the great Mick O'Dwyer. That was just years before anything like that was even happening anywhere else.
Oh, he was he realised, I'm always saying that about, I'm amazed in amateur sport, like Dublin winning 6 in a row, like to stay motivated and all you're winning is another medal. It's unbelievable. Like in professional sport, the more you win, the more you get paid. In amateur sport, and do I realise, and this is the big problem with trying to retain all Ireland titles or trying to put 3 in a row, 4 in a row, is to maintain the appetite. And Dwyer realised that we needed carrots to maintain that appetite. And the carrots he dangled were the foreign holidays. And geez, we had great times. It was brilliant.
It's funny at a lesser level, Pat, but I think my dad must have, obviously, known a few of the Kerry boys from his Limerick days, would have copped onto that back in the 80s. He's on something similar. He took the lead when Monaghan sort of picked up a bit of silverware and there was money to be made, got photos done the rounds, and there's still a few hanging around the place, and they took themselves to the Canaries. And then in 2015, I sort of got the idea as well. I says, right here, nobody's looking to send us anywhere here. And this was post sort of recession. It was harder to get a few bob at the time. And we done the round selling photos. But like that, Pat, remember, bugged me when we went out selling our photos. Some guys had been out, before, and you get into pubs and your man had sort of said, I've already bought him on photo, sorry Dick. And I says, fuck you anyway, excuse me language. We filled the bar for the whole summer, and next thing we were only charging a couple of £100 for a photo and they wouldn't take it off us. And I says, I didn't forget that now the next time they came looking for a jersey or an autograph or something. But anyway, it just shows you people can be fickle too, Pat.
He was right.
Get the money where you can.
But Dwyer was right. I mean, he believed firmly that the players should reap the rewards financially of their efforts, of their notoriety, of their profile. He hated to see companies piggybacking on the back of some success and not putting a penny into. So he was the ultimate players man, and that's why, in a way, I suppose that with the Adidas deals, with the Bendix deals, he was an enemy to the GAA, and that sadly is why probably he never got to become manager of the international rules. And I remember, and I've said it after he died, it was one of the biggest regrets. And he hadn't very many regrets about his managerial career or his footballing career. His biggest regret was that the GAA never selected him as manager of the international rules.
He was definitely a man before his time anyway. Lads, just looking ahead to, it's a big weekend of action. Not that many teams will end up out of the championship. Only 4 will go. But the run that teams will have, a lot will depend on this weekend, Dick. And just even focusing on, we'd say, the 2 6:30 throw-ins on Saturday. You have Armagh and Galway in Breffni Park, and you have Dublin and Derry in Park Esser in Newry. And just focus on that Dublin-Derry game for a minute, Dick. that's probably the tastiest game of the weekend.
It is, and I'd say there's a lot of pressure on Dessie Farrell. Like, he's at this stage. You just look at his championship performance today, going back to the Leinster Championship, oscillated wildly in terms of the standards. They're meeting a Derry team that has found something. There's a bit of confidence there. They're almost going with nothing to lose because the expectations were gone, whereas they sort of know that if they can bring the level that they brought to the Galway game and Dublin are off it, they can win that game and they're back in the All-Ireland conversation, and by doing it, they're dumping Dublin out. Like, whatever about losing a quarter-final or a semi-final or slipping back, for Dublin not even to make it out of a group, which, as you said, Mike, it's hard to not get out of it.
Yeah. That'll
be a very tough pill to swallow. So I'd say Dessie Farrell is travelling north, very, very apprehensive of the outcome. Now, that should, listen, if there's anything about them, that should bring out the best in them, and that's when the sort of, you get to this stage of the championship, the wheat gets separated from the chaff, as they say, and if they're not fit to raise themselves to beat a Derry team that they should be beaten, well, let's be honest, there's no business been in the championship, or they're not going to compete when it gets to semi-final or final stage anyway. So I'd say, and going to Newry, I'd say it's a long time. I can't remember. Definitely probably never played down in the championship game. So that's a new venue, new town, new environment for supporters, everything. So it's a bit of a banana skin for Dessie Farrell. I'd say he's. But listen, if they come out of it, then he'll have found something in the character of his players, and they've been showing themselves to bounce back. But I wouldn't be surprised to see a Derry result there. Derry will be a lot more comfortable going down to play in Newry and knowing that they've nothing to lose but to just throw absolutely everything at it, whereas Dublin have a huge amount to lose by not getting a result there, and that would put a huge amount of pressure, and whether his players can respond to that pressure remains to be seen.
Con O'Callaghan's fitness is going to be massive here. It's just going to be absolutely huge. From a Derry point of view, Niall Loughlin was back the last day. I think he really sets a tone as regard even them pressing and being aggressive when they don't have the ball. Loughlin Murray came in, he was brilliant. Pat, it's not that long ago. What are we looking back? Probably about 14 months ago, when Derry beat, a high-flying Derry team, beat a Dublin team with some of the best players that we've ever seen in the game that are no longer involved, and Derry are starting to get that bit of form again. They'll firmly believe that they can get a result and continue their involvement in the championship and knock Dublin out here.
Well, it's a huge weekend in this weekend for the football championship, because we have, as you pointed out, we have 8 huge games in the Sam Maguire, all relevant, all with something to play for. We have 4 quarterfinals in the Tailteann Cup, which is some cracking contests in store as well. And it just seems to be, before I deal with the game, with the Dublin-Derry game, which is going to be absolutely huge, I seem to every week have to have a rant about lack of TV coverage and lack of.
We're going to set up You're going to have to set up your own TV show.
I think so.
We'll get it back on. Absolutely.
I don't want to be like. The one thing I'm complaining about, I don't like the split season. The too many games, too short. No time for games to get publicity. No time for competitions to breed. So your only chance for giving it publicity is free to air television. And I just outlined. Like, we have huge matches on Saturday. We have 4 games in the Sam Maguire and 2 games in the Tailteann Cup. And there's no game on Saturday free to air. Jesus, that Dublin-Derry game in a packed Park Esler is box office. And they're not showing it. Right, there's 3 games on GAA+. But so the Dublin-Derry game is behind the paywall. The Galway Armagh game is behind the paywall. The Roscommon Cork game is behind the paywall. Believe it or not, the only game that's not being shown live, or that's not being shown at all, behind the paywall or otherwise, is Kerry against Meath. And you start to say, okay, I mean, they're still first and second to play for, but you say Kerry, one of the favourites for the All-Ireland, arguably the greatest player in the game at the moment, playing David Clifford. You'd say carry a box office for television anytime, and they're not being shown at all. So it's absolutely crazy. And you look at I'm sort of wondering, like, the GAA's mission statement is to promote Gaelic games. So you look at GAA+, right? park that, it's behind the paywall. But you start to say, how did they choose some of the games? So the classic example is in Newbridge. There are 2 games in Newbridge next Saturday. There's the Kildare hurlers, the Cinderella team of this year's hurling championship. Kildare hurlers playing Dublin. Kildare footballers playing Offaly in Newbridge. Newbridge will be a sellout. There'll be a huge crowd there, great atmosphere. It's not shown on GA+. It makes you. I cannot understand the logic of the reason. But of course, we shouldn't forget, at 5 o'clock hour, the sexy sport is on. The URC Champions League final in a half-empty Croke Park. And that's what RT will be focusing on next Saturday. Okay, we have the Saturday game Saturday night, and that's fine, and that's more than welcome. At least we'll get it. But
Pat, there's a large cohort, my parents included, that GA Plus does not exist. If it's not on telly, the games aren't happening, and it just does not make any sense, lads. There's an RT News Now channel there that they could loads, hundreds of thousands of people will watch the games there, and if someone else wants to watch the rugby, no problem. It makes no sense to me. There are cameras at these games.
You're right, Mike. I mean, Dublin Derry is a blockbuster. Galway Armagh is a repeat of last year's All-Ireland final. Think of the profile, think of the publicity generated for the GA, for the championship, if those games were free to air and so on. Yes, it's behind the paywall on GA+, and because both games are shown at the same time, 6:30, well, it means the small audience is split in 2. It's just wrong. But I just don't know. I'm not.
There's 2 sides to it, Pat. Now, I went through this, and you were the RTE. You know as well how these things sort of play out behind the scenes, and in terms of schedule and contracts. And in an ideal world, every game would be free to air, and that's just not feasible. It's not possible for a multitude of reasons, and we're not getting into that. Now, I suppose the reality is, Pat, you played your time. The only games shown were semi-finals and finals. There was no games on telly, and we've got to the stage now that there's an expectation that every quarter-final game is going to be shown. So there's a middle ground, but the reality is now that there's so much sport. There's an expectation from the armchair supporter, no matter what age, Mike, old, young, in between, that everything should be just at the end of a remote, and if it's not there for free, been sort of shortchanged. And that's there's an expectation that sort of unreal. Now, it'll come to the point that, well, as a membership, do we want to fund a sort of free-to-air GA TV channel? Because that's essentially what you're asking for. RTE are not going to send cameras. RTE don't have the budget, and they don't have the means or the interest, and nor can they just completely, take over their screen. So they're probably giving as much as they're willing to. Someone else is going to have to step in and bridge the gap. And it's GA Plus for the moment. And if that's not something that the sort of the market wants, well, then there might be an alternative needed. But at the same time, we're not short on content. I think there's definitely were mistakes made in terms of picking and choosing and scheduling, that there should be, because the season now, the GS is so narrow. You can't have weekends and Saturday nights and Sundays that we've had over the last night that there's no Gaelic football or hurling game. Each code has to be represented, because now you have such a very narrow window, and if you miss a week because, as Pat says, there's rugby on, you don't get that week back in August or September anymore, because it's gone. You have to sort of, and it goes back to the scheduling part, that we're now competing with airtime with rugby for the last month or 6 weeks, whereas in previous times you weren't. Number one, those rugby competitions weren't there, and the other two, that the competition of the GA season was further into the year. So I think people need to sort of take a wee step back and have a look at that, because, and as well, the GA product has got better. Because last year, we weren't sitting here bemoaning that all these games weren't free to air, Pat, because half of them were going to be meaningless and probably a dog of a game, whereas now is, we want to watch these games. But that's a good problem. That's a good problem to have, and hopefully maybe next year they'll have a revisit in terms of how we can get to see more games, be it free to air or be it at least on GA+, which, to be honest with you, it's not bad value. I've got a lot of good value out of it when I wasn't around, able to watch it on free-to-air games. So we can't knock that either. I think people have got used to paying for subscription models in every other walk of life, and I think we have to sort of be open-minded to that too.
But at the end of the day, I get all your arguments, but at the end of the day, you look at Saturday and you say, huge matches, blockbuster games, and not one match.
No. But the weekend, absolutely not. No.
It's just absolutely great. And like I said, surely the God, I remember when Armagh played Derry in the first round of the championship, and it wasn't shown anywhere. And you'll start to saying, the Armagh grounds were full. It was a capacity crowd, you say. And the same with Newbridge. Capacity crowd, you say, well, if you show it live or if you show it in GAA+, it's not going to take from the attendance. So why, if a full crowd in Newbridge, why not show it somewhere? It's just, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. We need to address it because we have so little time. There's only 5 after Sunday. There's only 5 hurling matches left. The football championship is nearly over and it's gone. And like you said, we can argue all about the split season, but we once had a month called September, where September was for the GAA, the hurling final, the football final, maximum publicity, and that's gone. Jesus, we need it at least in August.
Well, I tell you what, there's just no way that there's no game free to air on Saturday. Even one. Have Dublin and Derry on so that people can see it.
There's minor hurling actually or something like that. There's minor hurling.
Yeah. But just
with respect to the URC, there's not going to be too many tuning into that.
No.
There's a whole issue going around Leinster. They've lost their lustre. There's going to be, as Pat says, a half full Croke Park, and people have sort of signed out of rugby. Sure, even rugby, they're talking about the bloody Lions now, that these competitions are sort of dead in the water, and they'll push it and sell it and market it. But if you put one of those GAA games, you'll get at least 500,000 people sitting in to watch it.
It's funny, Dick, you said half full, Pat said half empty. I like half empty because it's more of a negative connotation to it. But just back on that Dublin Derry game, Pat, massive game. I do think this is the best form that Derry have been in a while, maybe even since in around that league final time about 14 months ago. They have the vast majority of their best players back on the pitch and fit and looking very sharp.
Except Conor McCluskey, he's a huge lad. He's a huge lad because he's one of the defenders that I really admire in the modern game. He's just absolutely brilliant. But look, in defence of Derry, I mean, look, Paddy Talley was selected late as manager. It was always going to be catch up. But what I saw in the 2 championship games in the round robin, I mean, that day against Armagh, they were 13 points down, brought it to 4, missed a couple of goal chances and could have sneaked the victory over Armagh. I love the character again they showed against Galway. Very, very impressive. They played great football. Their attitude, their aggression, their intensity, the physicality. And like you said, and Dick mentioned last night, Conor Glass and Brendan Rodgers, absolutely just magic. They're a danger. They're a banana skin for the Dubs because I think the last time the last big match Dublin went out of, they were beaten, obviously. They were beaten, in the championship, they won in Auckland, beaten in Portlaoise, and beaten, wasn't it, in the last game of the league up in in Healy Park in Armagh. So, when you take them out of their comfort zone, the usual dressing room in Croke Park, the usual site to the usual routine, and suddenly you're in a bus, you're travelling up the road, you have to be up there somewhere in some hotel around Newry. It upsets the rhythm, and there's no doubt about it. They are possibly there for the taking, but the last day, when we looked through the analysis of that game against Armagh, and there was 5 points in it, and we saw the 17 wides that they kicked, and we saw the 5 points they handed to Armagh as a result of technical fouls, and they played poorly, and they could still have drawn the game. So I think there's.
But Pat, they did that. I know we're sort of giving them a pass that they won't do that again. The reality is that's how they played. That's how they played in Portlaoise, and they were poor in Wicklow as well. Yes. They've had more bad performance now.
But then
than the counter. So that's Dessie Farrell's concern.
But isn't this the craziness of this year's championship and the beauty of this year's championship? Like, I used to do previews all the time, and thanks be to God I don't do previews because trying to preview a GAA match based on form is a nightmare because where could you get Tyrone go to Ballybuffet and beat Donegal? Tyrone, the next match, go to Healy Park, home against Mayo, who had been hammered by Cavan, and they win. And Dublin were very, very impressive against Galway in the opening round. Very impressive. And then the following week against Armagh, they play second fiddle. But I just still look at that team and you look at the calibre of their forwards and you say, oh, geez, if they click, they're going to win. So I fancy Dublin. I think there's a kick in Dublin. Will they win the All-Ireland? Maybe not.
Okay. I fancy Derry. I'm going to go with Derry because I know what Derry are like from playing against them, from watching them. They can be either end of the spectrum, and that's like there's days Derry like with a sort of star-laden team turned up at games and just laid a complete egg, and then there's other times that they turn up and they'll beat an All-Ireland favourite, and that's what they've been like 20, 30 years. And I think that Derry team now have got a bit of a bounce back. They've nothing to lose. There's absolutely no pressure on Derry. No pressure on Derry going down there, and I think they'll just throw absolutely. So it's rather Dublin can bring themselves up from the level that they're at, and they're only better than that Armagh performance if they turn up and do better. But they have to find something. They have to get a big shift from their leading players. Con O'Callaghan, I don't know if you hear anything like that's going to be a massive thing, or else because I don't actually think there's enough in the rest of them. If Derry play at the level that they can to get them over the line, but I'm sort of marginally tipping Derry on this one.
One vote for Dublin, one vote for Derry. I think it'll be a draw, and I think Dublin will just about survive. But I think Derry are unbelievably dangerous. I saw their last two games in person. They rose from the dead against Armagh when they eventually got a foothold, and they were brilliant the last day. And they were.
It looks as something has happened behind the scenes. Yeah. There, because like we were quite scathing off them against Donegal because it looked like things just weren't right. They sort of turned their back on the game once it was sort of gone from them. It looks as something has clicked. The few boys back fit and playing, and there's a wee bit more belief and a bit of buy-in against Paddy Tally. As Pat says, got thrown in there at the sort of the 11th hour, and it looks like he's starting to put his mark, or at least get a wee bit of buy-in from the players and the supporters. So
Pat, what do you think Armagh's approach will be to the Galway game on Saturday?
Have to win. Have to keep momentum. I think winning builds confidence. It gets that thing momentum. But a confident team, it's very hard to figure out. I'm looking at Armagh and I'm looking at Kerry, and you're sort of saying Kerry have had no tests so far, and you start to say this could be a good thing because they'll arrive fresh, or this could be a bad thing because they're not battle weary. Armagh, you'll say. McGeaney is such a warrior and is such a winner and is such a guy who demands high standards that I can't see failing, because two things about them. One, their competitiveness, their warrior-like spirit. But two, and this is the big two, there's huge competition for places. And when there's huge competition for places and there's a load of brilliant impact subs to come on, the guys starting will want to produce a performance, because if they're not, they're gone. So there was a lot to admire about Galway the last day, in the sense that when they played against Derry, they were 8 points down, looked out of it and got back to get a draw. But there was something about them that they're just not firing. They're just not firing. Conroy is not the same player as he was last year. They're not dominating that middle third. Shane Walsh doesn't seem to be at 100% fitness. Is Damien Comer match fit? I'm not too sure. So a lot more question marks this year about Galway thus far in the championship.
What do you reckon that game, Dick?
I think you're gonna. I think there's a big moan for Padraic Joyce. Yeah. He's sitting looking at Shane Walsh. He's looking at Comer. He's looking at guys. So right, I need to figure out, number one, how to win this game. Right, forget about thinking about All Irelands, because they just have to get a result here, or else their All Ireland ambitions are up in smoke. And good chance that Padraic Joyce might be sort of done with that team. So if he can come out of it, the All Ireland is still on the agenda. If not, it's a fairly disappointing end to what was a team with huge potential. So he's a few selection issues, especially with the way that game against Derry finished. We talked about this the last day, Mike, the boys that came up, and I'm not holding anything against them. Like, some days the ball doesn't break for you, and you're just hoping that there's somebody come in and do a job for you. Problem is, with the likes of Shane Walsh, there's been a couple of flat performances, and it's sort of tied in with a flat performance for Galway. And is there an issue there in terms of how to accommodate a talent like him, but to try and get the best out of everybody else and set a certain tempo and work rate around your team? Wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't start Shane Walsh, is my point, Mike. Okay. And try to sort of have something like him to come in and use his pace, because Shane Walsh's talent is getting the ball static and burning a man from a standing start. That's what he does. He doesn't work hard. If you actually watch Shane Walsh, he doesn't work hard off the ball in terms of making a deep run, timing his run. He wants to do his hard running with the ball in hand. And that's better to have that coming in at the end of a game when there's a bit more space and players are a wee bit more tired. He's sort of struggling to make that impact. So I think that's going to be a huge question now. And if Comer's fit, which by the looks of the last 10, 15 minutes, he is fit. Put him in there. I've heard, not to be unfair, that Comer is a little bit precious of himself, needs to be 100% fit. Like, from what I could see physically and his pace and his ability, there wasn't a whole pile wrong with him there at the weekend or in the last game. Throw him in. Give me 45 minutes, Damien. Padraic should be saying to him, give me your best. And you know what? If you have to come out, Shane Walsh can slip in for you, because so they're huge decisions now for Joyce, because the cost of getting it wrong one way or the other, their season's gone. But if he gets it right and they get a result, they're back in song.
I agree with Dick. It's a huge game for Galway, and it's a huge game for Padraic, Joyce, because after the narrow misses of the last few years, Padraic is at the helm for a good few years now. A defeat for Galway, and if Galway are out of the championship, that's the end of Padraic Joyce and his management team. That sadly is the pressure revolving around inter-county management.
The psychological aspect of games has played a big factor. So who's the team that's coming into a game maybe overly confident, lays an egg, and the team that has to bounce back, deliver the performance. We've seen that several times. On that basis, I think it's laid up for a Galway win. Like it's all on them in terms of, and it's not a case of, we just need to win it here. Like they were beaten in Derry, and they found something that day, and they came down the road going, right, whatever. It wasn't a great performance, but there was something there to carry forward. And I think like they'll want a bit of a payback against Armagh, against taking their All-Ireland title from last year as well.
Yeah, and Dick, with the best
if there's anything about those Galway fellas, they should be mad to tear into Armagh for multiple reasons on at the weekend.
And with the best win in the world, and I know you say, Pat, Armagh need to keep the momentum. They're through already, and don't tell me that doesn't seep into the subconscious a small bit, that we're through. And I know they'll give a couple of lads chances or whatever, and we've great competition within our squad. But even look at Limerick against Clare in the last round of Munster, and they were trying to keep the momentum going, and a couple of lads got chances and didn't deliver. I find it hard.
Sorry, Mike, they're not just through; they're through top.
Yeah,
it's not
like Kerry and Meath. Yeah. Kerry still can't just. They have to sort of at least within the first half. And they're through top. So like. There's a good chance, and we don't know what's happening behind the scenes in Armagh. They've sat down and said, you know what, here boys, let's be practical about this. We can sort of go full belt into this Galway game and prep yourself for a big championship game for the 2 weeks. You taper your training, you do all that sort of stuff. Or we sort of say, do you know what, will we use a 4-week block that we have now to try and get other boys up to train? So put boys like Rian O'Neill or boys that are coming back, use that window to say, put them through 2 or 3 weeks hard training to get them ready for a quarter final, because in many ways that would be the smart thing to do, and sort of go down and pick a strong team, but not your best team, and win-lose doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but by winning...
So I don't know. They may have not done that, but there would be a good argument for them to do that.
But they've earned the right to do whatever they want anyway.
Agreed, 100%. But by winning and by beating Galway, you're possibly, not certainly, but you're possibly throwing a serious contender out of the championship, which is a big plus. And the other thing about it, and you look at, we talk about the unfairness of the championship format, but the team who finishes third under this punishing, grueling schedule, the team who finishes third will be playing 3 championship games in a row, 3 weekends in a row, round 3, preliminary quarter-final and quarter-final. If they win again, they'll be playing 4 matches in 5 weeks in the All-Ireland semi-final. And if they get into the final, they'll be playing 5 championship matches in 7 weeks. Holy God. Amateur sport, it's bananas.
Yeah, just on that as well. Yeah, just on that, Monaghan are the only third team place in the 2 years that have gotten to a semi-final. Galway are the only, in 2023, Galway are the only second team place that have gotten to an All-Ireland final. Yeah. That'll just show you how different.
I'd say you'd see something similar again.
I think so. Yeah.
And it's not even having to play you have to play a preliminary and a quarter. It's the fact that now the game that preceded the preliminary was a tough game, so that just continues to draw the resources on a panel game on game, and that's the difficulty. Like last year, they probably would, if you went back, can't remember, some of those last round games in the round robin were probably dead ducks, and whereas actually this weekend they are full board championship games that have to go out again, and you get injuries, you get tiredness, fatigue, and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, finishing top of your group is such a carrot now, and that pushes Kerry and Armagh definitely into first and second place for the All-Ireland based on that alone.
And the All-Ireland winners in 23 and 24 both topped their group. Dublin in 23.
It'll be the same this year.
Yeah, just quickly, lads, timing's a small bit against us. The other games on Saturday, Roscommon and Cork, neither of which have points at the minute. Whoever wins goes through, or whoever draws and has the better scoring difference will go through. Kerry and Meath obviously are facing off for top spot. A draw will do Kerry. Meath need to win on Sunday then. Monaghan and Down is a top of the table clash, both on 4 points. Louth and Clare is a bottom of the table clash, and whoever gets the result there will go through. We'll just quickly focus on what would be considered the other really competitive group. Tyrone versus Cavan in Brewster Park on Sunday, and Donegal versus Mayo. Is this great? 4 teams on 2 points, lads, going into the last round. Everybody has a chance, but with Mayo have really put themselves behind the 8 ball. That Cavan result, they have to get a result this weekend. Cavan have that head-to-head sitting there in the background if they need it, Pat, and that could ultimately undo Mayo.
Tyrone, Cavan, both teams come into this game on the back of 2 horrible no-shows in the last round, because Tyrone were beaten by 7 points by Mayo, probably should have been beaten by more, brought no energy, brought no intensity, brought nothing to the table that they had brought to Ballybuffet. Cavan were absolutely awful being hammered by Donegal. They were hammered by 19 points. So it's a big game in particular for Tyrone, because we've been talking up Malachy O'Rourke, and I know Dick has huge admiration for Malachy O'Rourke as a coach. There's huge pressure on him because there's a lot of big matches that he hasn't delivered.
Brolly now. You're just back in your
Tyrone
now.
team.
Yeah.
Well, they've been disappointed. No, I wouldn't.
I don't disagree with you, by the way.
They've been they've disappointed me in lots of games. After Ballybuffet, I said, geez, and the last day, they were just so flat.
And you know what, Pat? It's not enough of a pass to say that Mayo were going to deliver something big. That's not enough of a pass. You delivered something big the previous week, and they should have been able to build on it and go 2 from 2. I think that's almost been given as a pass. Mayo were going to do this or that, and McKevin McStay not there. And I totally, that's 100%. But Tyrone did not deliver any level of performance.
So I still fancy. Look, I think that's the easier. Game of the 2 to call. I fancy Tyrone. I think there's a big performance in Tyrone. I think Cavan have flattered to deceive, deservedly beat Mayo, but I think Mayo were there for the taking on the day. The other game is a really hard one to call. Monaghan and Down. I think, as far as I recall, Down beat them by a point in the league, and I think Monaghan this time will gain revenge. The big thing, if that's the case, that means that Donegal or that. But who'll be out?
Monaghan and Down is in another group. They're
my apologies.
Yeah. Donegal and Mayo is the other
Mayo
game.
and Donegal, my apologies. Mayo and Donegal. That's the trickiest game to call. So I sort of slightly fancied Donegal because I just fancied them. There's a hit in them. I think Mayo will be gone. I think that's the bottom line.
I would agree with Pat. I think there's too much actually to lose for Galway. Donegal. It's not as if it's all for Mayo. If Donegal lose that, I do fully expect Tyrone to beat Cavan. Donegal finish third.
Yeah,
in the group, so they get a tougher draw in the next round. Whereas if they win it, they win top. And
they're top.
Jimmy Guinness knows. Listen, he's thinking about All-Ireland final, and he knows if they have to go through the back door, good and all the penalty is, the odds are stacked against them. So they will be going out with as much to lose in that game as Mayo, and Mayo have shot themselves in the foot, sadly, with the Cavan game, and that's going to come back.
So
going to come back to haunt them.
It'll be Donegal to top, Tyrone second, and Cavan to come third on the base.
Hold on a second now. If Donegal and Tyrone win, Tyrone are top on head-to-head.
That's what I'm saying. Donegal actually slipped back to third.
Yes, sorry.
So they do.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
So Donegal, if Tyrone win, Donegal can't go top. They have to go. They have to go through that back door. Yeah. So
Correct.
So they'll be looking for Cavan to do them a favour, which I think is a bit of a long shot. Yeah.
Sorry.
Donegal
win.
Donegal and Tyrone are going to be head to head. Tyrone beat Donegal, so Donegal Donegal are going to be playing a preliminary quarter final if Tyrone win. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I missed that.
Yeah,
that's huge.
Yeah, like so it's messy.
The wheel on that.
The best.
Well, you get paid the big bucks, mate.
I wish
you wouldn't get that with Joe Malloy.
I did. You want to be an honor. I never did. I did pass maths for the leaving cert, so I'm stupid at figures. So you want to be. You'd want to be an honours maths or naturally to calculate all the permutations and
so that's basically So really, the conversation is Donegal as an All Ireland contender rests on Tyrone and Cavan game. Like we're saying, on one hand, they come through the preliminaries the whole way through is for any team, no matter how good you are, is a real long shot, and that's what basically Donegal are facing into.
Yeah, that's what they're facing into, and it's the likelihood is that Tyrone would beat Cavan based on all known form. But if there was one team that could do like what Galway did in 2024 and go through the back door and potentially get to a final and potentially win it, maybe it is Donegal.
Yeah, you take it. Yeah. In terms of Monaghan, I know, just touching my own, I think that's a huge game for them. I think, listen, that's a 50-50 game. I think Down, I know, again, I think that psychologically it's in Monaghan's sort of balance, because Down will be sort of patting themselves back. I don't think, like, at the end of the day, they got, they sort of pipped us, Pat, with Monaghan were sort of qualified in the league. Yeah. Anyway, when we played them, and Down ended up getting relegated. So I think Monaghan are further down the tracks. They finished strong against Clare, the few boys coming back into form, and huge carrot to get into a quarter final.
It's on television, free to air, 2 o'clock.
And why not? Ulster blockbuster. So we're propping up the championship this 10 years, Pat, with the rest. Yeah. But yeah, so here, and I think that's a huge. Again, looking forward to the tickets bought, and they're talking about full house now in Armagh on Sunday afternoon for both counties. And listen, whatever with free to air, folks, there's nothing beats being there. Let's call a spade a spade. Getting out the games and going and enjoying them, because I haven't enjoyed football in person as much in a long time. So anyone that's listening, if you have an opportunity to go to any one of those games across the country over the weekend, get out.
Can only reiterate what you said. I mean, I go to all the Sligo matches. I was in Tubbercurry last Sunday. 2,200 people in a more scenic, idyllic ground in South Sligo. Great atmosphere, great crowd, everyone buzzing, great game of football, high scoring. Like I said, everyone has fallen back in love with the football. And next Saturday, I'll strike off at 8 o'clock in the morning for my 5.5-hour drive to Inniskillen to watch Sligo playing Fermanagh at 5 o'clock in the Tailteann Cup quarter final, and I can't wait. And like the one thing, like Tailteann Cup has been, I just love the games. And the one thing, unlike the other hurling that Joe McDonough's, and there's great crowds coming to these Tailteann Cup, and I've been to this. Bigger, yeah. Oh, they're getting big. Great atmosphere, great crowds, and I was at Inniskillen for the league game between Sligo and Fermanagh. It was a draw, and I swear to God, the Fermanagh supporters and the Fermanagh people are just the greatest GAA people you could ever meet. So hospitable, so welcoming, and like you said, Dick, geez, you can't beat being there in the crowd, in the atmosphere, and watching great football.
Yeah, and you laugh at this, Mike. I know you're under pressure, but when we're coming home from, hopefully, the Armagh on Sunday, we'll be putting the Bee Gees on the radio, and you laugh at this, wonder why. I you know where I'm coming from with this. I for some reason on my Spotify list, it jumps to an old random podcast, and you done one with Milan and Eddie Brennan, and Milan was talking about the Bee Gees. And next thing you hear, when you hear a song, you have to put it on the radio. So I'm listening to the fucking Bee Gees all week. And
that song is brilliant. Win again.
It's a banger.
Brilliant song. Brilliant song.
Banger. So thanks, John, for his playlist recommendation.
Gents, thanks a million for your time. That was super. We'll be back next week to digest what it really is a mouth-watering weekend, and it's great to have 12 brilliant games to look forward to. Dick and Pat, thanks very much, folks. Talk to you soon.